I was always that person who feels that if I'm not good enough with something, then I'm going to prove you wrong. But around age 11, I had this life changing car accident that completely threw my life trajectory to something that I had never expected. I didn't want to feel different, I didn't want to be judged, but I couldn't have that confidence to show off because there was something about me I was trying to hide. What you can do about the past, it's not going to matter. What you do today is going to matter how you experience tomorrow. How you show up in doing one thing is how you show up in doing everything. Am I living this life for myself or am I living this life for someone else?
How do you help these people to face those intimidating challenges and overcome that inaction?
So I think the most important question to ask yourself is,
Today's guest is an author, a speaker, and a coach. She has inspired and empowered hundreds of women to face and overcome their fears. Without further ado, let's welcome the host of Make It Visible podcast, the amazing Michelle Kuei. How's it going, Michelle? Welcome to the show.
thank you. Thank you so much for having me on the show.
No, thanks for being here. Since I found about you, since I read about you, I was like, I really need to talk to this person. She's very, very inspiring. I've been looking forward to it. So, Michelle, as I said, you're a very inspiring person. You have overcome a lot in your life, and your accomplishments are incredible. But could you take me back and tell me a little bit about your origin story? Who was Michelle before the accident, your time in Taiwan, and the years before and after?
Okay, so how much time do we have on the podcast? I hope
Yeah,
it's like
as much time as you need, as much time as you need.
it's like a lifelong journey, right? And I always think back to the time, people say, "Oh, you accomplished so many amazing things," but to me, a lot of us are going through that every single day. And those of you who's listening to the podcast, or I don't know if this is a video, but those of you who's out there and feeling that your story is insignificant, I hope that after you hear my story, it's going to make you feel empowered and not overlook the achievement that you have accomplished thus far. So to answer your question, let's go back to when I was, first of all, I'm an immigrant to the United States. So my original county where I was born in Taiwan. Before age 15, I spoke no English at all. So a lot of these, if you pick up any accent, that's because English is my second language. And I used to feel really bad about my accent. And when people say, "Oh, can you say that again?" I took that as a judgment of me not being good enough in speaking English. But contrary to what a lot of people feel, that when I'm not good enough, people go into this rabbit hole of, "Oh, I need to quiet, keep myself quiet." I was always that person who feels that if I'm not good enough with something, then I'm going to prove you wrong. And so I always have this warrior and this like a Wonder Woman kind of fighting back against all the things that say about me, including the things that I had said about myself. So I was born in Taiwan and I came to US when I was 15. But around age 11, I had this life-changing car accident that completely threw my life trajectory to something that I had never expected. And just take a moment and recall what it felt like when you were 11 years old, right? You probably have school, you have friends hanging out with each other, and life is just pretty decent. I would say pretty decent, despite the fact that we had to go to school. But at age 11, I had a car accident that changed my life. And how did it happen? The detail of the day of that accident, I don't remember. What I remember was I was crossing the street, meeting my mom, who came to pick me up, and the midst of it, I was caught in this chaos where people were shouting "stop!" and apparently there was a taxi, according to the witness, who ran the red light, and it pushes me about 100 feet away from where I was standing. And so it all happened too quickly. By the time I realized this had happened, I was already waking up in a hospital bed. So a lot of the information, and including what I had included inside the book, it was something that came from the witness. And I remember my when I wrote the book, my editor kept saying, "Michelle, you got to give people more detail. What happened at the accident? What happened?" I'm like, I don't even remember what happened. And a lot of it has to do with people coming back to me and then tell me like filling in these details. So it was very fragmented in terms of how the accident happened, what happened next, and it was not in a very concise and way of describing even in my book and even now when I'm talking about it. But I do remember I woke up in the hospital bed and I was surrounded by my family member, my parents, and were talking to the doctor. But I remember feeling this excruciating pain from my waist to the ankle. I was wrapped in a cast. I couldn't move. I wasn't paralyzed. However, there's my bone broke into pieces where the doctor had to stabilize me. And basically, from that point, that day of the accident, it took me a good 3 months, 6 months for my bone to heal in that same position, locked down in the bed, not going
Wow.
anywhere. And so it was pretty challenging for a very pretty active 11-year-old who enjoyed running on the. I remember back in Taiwan, we had these rice field, and you can run across the rice field with your friend, chasing each other. But I couldn't do that anymore after the accident.
Yeah, Michelle, your that is very impactful, especially for an 11-year-old kid. As you said, the only concern that we have at that age is just I have to go to class. I don't like my class, or that kid was mean to me. And I know kids are very very resilient, but I cannot imagine how that could have been, especially the months and a few years after. How that shaped your internal self. It's just
Mm,
like,
yeah.
man, I used to be this happy kid, and yeah, we all face experiences of trauma to some degree, but most of those traumas are internally. Yours was both internally and externally, or emotionally and physically, I should say. And how was the whole process, especially the first few years after you had the accident and you had to go back to the normal life, but different?
It was definitely not easy. And back then I didn't realize there's that emotional aspects of, what we cannot see, right? So most of us we look at someone and we judge how happy that person is from the external presentation, our first impression. And so I remember initially my reaction was, "Oh, hooray, no school. How cool is that?" Like a little kid, "How cool is that? Great. No school." But then it gradually occurred to me that from this point on, I would look different. I would always walk differently. And by the time I was discharged from the hospital, I remember because my bone wasn't healing, so I had to gone through multiple surgery, and the doctor had to put pins in me to stabilize the bone because it was just too active. I was just moving around too much, and so I counted I had 11 no 13 surgeries
Wow.
go going back in and out, so my legs were covered with scars. And that first couple of years, when I came out from surgery, it was fresh scars. And I don't know if you remember those cuts that we always have. It's always red. It's very prominent. It's very apparent right when we first see it. And so imagine a person's leg covered with these scars. They're very apparent, very very noticeable. And so for a very long period of time, as a teenager, I could not wear any skirts. And that was my the first thing that occurred to me, that oh my goodness, I am different. I can no longer wear skirts. I need to cover this up. So I remember back then, by that time I was already in US. I was already 15. I was in US, and I didn't want to feel different. I didn't want to be judged. And I grew up in New York. I went to school in New York when my family first came. And in New York, sometime during the summertime, it's the humidity is really high. So it's terrible. But no matter how hot it is, I would wear stocking just so that I can cover up my scars no matter how hot it is. And it just looked completely weird because nowadays we look at well, why are you wearing stocking? Now people like you know what, I'm going to show my skin. I'm going to be comfortable in my skin. But I couldn't have that confidence to show off because there was something about me I was trying to hide. Yeah, it was not. It was not a very pleasant journey to go through as a teenager. I could never dress up really pretty, and back then, I was walking with two crutches already because I couldn't support myself, and I was given this two gigantic metal brace to wear until like my bones stabilize and I stop growth. So that was not very a pretty sight for anybody, and let alone the trying to impress any boys. Back then I'm like to that point where I want to impress boys in my class, but I couldn't do that, and that's been the biggest struggles that I have noticed. And not to mention the look from my peers, from my classmates. They're always wondering, oh, what is wrong with her? And so that sends a signal to myself thinking, yeah, that's right. What is wrong with me?
Yeah, Michelle, that is absolutely to a point. Is devastating to even imagine this fragile kid, because we're all fragile at that stage, especially emotionally, that you feel I want to be accepted, and you don't even know what other people think. They just you feel the perception of other people. And yes, we have this movement that being comfortable in your own skin, but even in 2024 we have a lot of people who are not even uncomfortable, who are not comfortable in their own skin. uh and I cannot even comprehend how hard that could have been. And especially moving from what you have known in Taiwan, where people knew what you went through. It's like, okay, Michelle had a very devastating accident, and that's why she has scars, or that's why she doesn't wear skirts, and that's why she has crutches. But moving to New York City, or to New York, whatever, it's like, well, who is this kid? Who is this kid that barely speaks any English? And it's still so strange, and people used to judge way more before than nowadays. Nowadays people are more accepting. So, man, that speaks volume of what you have been able to accomplish, even more so, because that could cripple somebody internally in the mindset, in the psychology. And based on that, I listened to, I was to this interview, and this guy who was an entrepreneur, he mentioned a phrase that I fell in love with. He said, "Tough times don't last, tough people do." And clearly, you are the embodiment of that phrase. How are you able to keep moving forward, especially after you are in the US 15, 20, 25, on a personal and internal level, especially during those times in which your self confidence and self esteem were perhaps at an all time low?
Yeah. So I have very similar saying to this entrepreneur, this guy that you mentioned. Sometimes our toughest day can actually turn out to the best one that we ever experienced, right? So even this time, this concept of time, it's really relative. So what you experienced in the past, if you continue to hold on to that idea and to the belief, then your day is always going to feel, oh my gosh, it sucks. Right? It's the toughest day and it's always going to suck. But then if you're letting go the idea of, you know what, I had a tough day yesterday. Today I'm just gonna be open and I don't know what's gonna come. And if I just do my best to show up today. Maybe today is not the toughest day. Yesterday was, right? So it's a really a great a way of shifting your mindset to allowing yourself to let go of the idea that today the past has passed. What you can do about the past, it's not going to matter. What you do today is going to matter how you experience tomorrow. So we can focus on the past, or we can focus on today and have a different experience tomorrow. And the choice is always yours, right? So we can always choose how you want to experience life. So I think one of the things that really helped me was the fact that I have this internal belief that every single one of us have this superpower. I like to call it the superpower. It's that inner warrior that I had talked about, the inner Wonder Woman that you always have inside of you. And for gentlemen out there, it's probably your Superman, right? Your Superman inside of you always have the ability to help you to choose the best day of your life. Now, it is up to you to listen to whether or not you want to follow the instruction by this internal superhero that you have, or do you give in to the voice that's always going to sound, hey, you're not good enough, you're not happy enough, you're not rich enough, you're not quick enough, you're not better enough. There's all these enoughness that allow us to drift away from what our true superhero wants us to do. And so I think it's always come down to a choice of how you want your life to be tomorrow, not based on the experience that you have in the past. And that really helped me to make a lot of decisions and choices that yes, absolutely right. I look different. I am 4 feet 4 inches tall. And when you see me, I'm this super small, but like think of a chihuahua, right? Chihuahua. We all know about chihuahua, how they bite. So I'm this little chihuahua, but be careful because I will bite if things are against the beliefs, it's against the right and the choices that people should need to have, then I will bite. But I think it's a choice that I have made to not allow my experience to define me, but actually rise above our experience and look at what is the overall big picture of the purpose I serve in this lifetime. And that totally changed my perspective of, you know what? Yes, I am different. I am going to always look different. But what you don't know about me is I am a strong person and I can do things that many people are afraid to do.
No, I mean, I totally agree with you, Michelle, and it's all about a choice. And the question I have, because I've been in that position before, and many people have. How do we tap into that? Because it is so easy to just spiral down of the negative thoughts, the negative emotions. Especially our bodies are so used to it. So it is a very simple concept. It's a choice. You either choose to embrace your weirdness or your uh, how different you are and your challenges, and use them to your advantage, or just be crippled by them. But even though it's a very simple choice, it's like, well, either black or white, yes or no. It is so easy to fall down the rabbit hole of negativity, and it's hard to catch ourselves and pull us back and just face the other way. How how do people could make that process easier?
Yeah. So Simon Sinek has this great book. It says everything starts with why. And I remember when I was caught in that spiral of a lot of negative self talk, talking poorly about myself and others, one of the fundamental questions I came back to was why? Asking myself, why am I doing this? Why is this important? What purpose does it serve? And why do I want to have it? And so when I started asking myself that why, what I learned was that there's couple of things that really important. One of it is it comes down to your values, and how we come up with these values are based on a number of things. The things that we have learned in life, maybe it's from our family, from the school, from the academic that we have learned, or sometimes it's coming from these life experiences that have taught us a lesson, and these lessons become our personal value, and these values become non-negotiable, that how you show up in doing one thing is how you show up in doing everything. So if your value has to do with integrity, honesty, authenticity, courage, then a lot of things that you decide and choose to do would go back to that fundamental reason of why. And that why came from the values that you have in life. So if courage is important to me, I'm going to make sure that all the decision that I make, did I show up with being courageous? Is this something that I did because of fear, or am I doing this because it serves me? It feels good because I'm honoring my values. So I think the most important question to ask yourself, and when you're making this choice or before you decide on anything at all, is why do you want to do it? Why is it important to you? And how is it going to honor your values in life? And if it's not, perhaps there's a reason why you're making a different choice.
Yeah, one thing that you said over there is very, very true. And yes, I've read that book about Simon Sinek. Why? It's just an amazing book, and it's true. And for those people who feel that, well, I'm not courageous or I have no courage, the fact that you feel fear, that doesn't mean that you're not courageous. In fact, if you do the thing in spite of having that fear, that shows courage. You're doing it anyway, and 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 you just need that small proof to yourself that I was able to do that small thing, and then you can start building from that. And I can see how you can tap into your values, what really matters to you, which that's what people need to figure out. So what really matters to them, I know what matters to other people, their internal work, because you have done all this kind of work and thing. And I think this is the topic that you and I want to jump to is, tell me about Machu Picchu. How did that idea come about, and how was the process?
I woke up one day and I said, you know what, today looks like a beautiful day. I'm gonna go hike Machu Picchu.
There you go.
That would be the simple answer, right? But it didn't happen that way. It didn't happen that I woke up one day and said, you know what, today looks like a beautiful day. I'm gonna do this. No, it was a slow process where I came to a conclusion because I was looking for my why, looking for my purpose, right? Why do I exist in the first place, and why all these unfortunate events happen to me? And I totally agree with the fear, right? The fear is real. The fear is always there trying to take over the driver's seat. And the fear of not doing things, it sometimes can be so debilitating that you decide to, just follow your fear. And I came to the point where I no longer want to give in to my fear. And I call fear this gremlin. I don't know if you have watched the movie Gremlin. It's like a little cute, puppet running around, usually pretty nice. But when you sprinkle some water, then this gremlin
Yeah, total
turn into
monster.
this monster, the total monster. So that's how I describe my fear, right? The fear is usually just in the quiet, in the background playing most of the time. But then when you sprinkle some water and you fit into it, then it turned into this big monster. And so my gremlin, my monster, it's actually in the form of a Barbie doll. Because the Barbie doll, if you look at the Barbie doll is really pretty, very perfect, right? Perfect shape and body. Every American girl's dream to be the Barbie, and they actually made a movie about it. So my gremlin is a Barbie, and I wanted to look like that, but I couldn't. So how can I make myself feel a little better about who I am? And so in that process, I have friends who came back from Machu Picchu. They all went to that amazing hike. They hiked through the Inca Trail, the most toughest trail, and they were all bragging about it. And I'm thinking, why not me? Like, why can't it be me doing this? Despite the fact that I was walking with two crutches, like, why couldn't it be me? I want to do it. I want to belong. I want to be part of this conversation. And so it got me thinking. So my fear at this point is out the door because there's no room when you feel inspired, when you feel motivated, when you feel that you have something that you want to work towards. Your fear becomes secondary. Your fear is silence and start get into the background. And so when I had that determination of I wanting to do this, and then the wheel got spinning, and I'm thinking, okay, so how can I improve myself so that I can be part of this conversation? So all I was thinking about was I need to get in shape. So I start Google, I start YouTube, and the first thing I did was I went to Target, I bought myself a Pilates ball, and I'm gonna start getting into motion, getting into I can't run, but I can move, right? So I bought the Pilates ball. I came back, went onto YouTube. So those of you who's searching like constant information on YouTube, kudos to you because that's a great way to get started.
YouTube
So
University.
exactly. So I went on to YouTube. I was searching like what are some of the activity that people with mobility, limited mobility can do. And that was the first thing I did. So I did that for 2 weeks, and then the ball got rolling, right? Literally got rolling. And then so I decided to call up a local gym. I said, I don't want to go to the big gym because then people would turn and they would be wondering, like, what is she doing here? She can't even do the push up and pull up. What is she doing here? And so I didn't want to do that. So I called up the local gym and I said, hey, I'm looking to sign up to a gym. Would you mind giving me a tool? So I went to one of the independent one, and it was a very small gym. It wasn't huge, and the owner gave me a tool. So from that point on, I hire him as my personal trainer because I needed to get in shape. And that was another great thing that I have done in my life is by asking for help. And I know a lot of people when they're trying to do something, they think that they can just do it on their own. But in the reality
Guilty.
is that right, you cannot do things alone on this planet, and there's no way that you are designed to do everything yourself. So when it is time, ask for help. And so that's what I did. I asked for help. I said, I need this and I need to get my body in shape. But I didn't tell him that, hey, I'm going to go high Machu Picchu. It was in the background. I just want to get in shape. And so I started to work out, and I was very committed. I show up every day, did 2 hours. I spent 2 hours. I was one of the gym rats. And so I would spend 2 hours in the gym every single day. And I was trained with this personal trainer once a week. And somewhere along that line, I went to him and I said, hey, Joe, his name is Joe. Hey, Joe, I would like to hike Machu Picchu, and you should see the look on his face. He's like, "Where Machu Picchu? What? Where's that? And what? How did this came about?" And so it came from the conversation because I wanting to be part of that conversation. I wanting to brag about myself. Hey, I went to hike Machu Picchu. I wanted to prove to myself that despite of my limitation, I am just like you, perfectly normal. I can do things if you give me the opportunity to do it. And I was really determined. And he said, well, people go up there and have like they break leg. What if you break leg? What if you fall? What happened? I'm like, yeah, I can think about all the what if, or you can help me get me in shape, and I'm going to do the hike. And if I die, that's okay because I my mission was accomplished. And so it didn't just happen overnight that I decided, you know what, today I'm going to hike Machu Picchu. It happened progressively, and I had to prepare for it. And of course, there's going to be a period where your fear will show up and say, "Oh, let's not do this. Oh, today is rainy day. Let's not go to the gym." Again, it comes back to the choice, right?
How long did it pass from the moment you felt I wanna hike in Machu Picchu to the moment that you actually did it? Or what was the timeline of that preparation?
About a year,
Okay.
about a year, and I initially it was I want to have six packs, so I was on it. I was meal
Okay.
counting, meal prepping to the T.
Yeah, no, that is unbelievable, and the patience to have, because I'm the kind of person that if I have an idea, I want to do this, I want it now, I want to just do it now. And well, hold on a second, you cannot have it now. I mean, you just have to prepare and be patient. But one thing you said that really struck to my core, because I feel the same way and many people do, is like when I tried to accomplish these great things that I didn't even think it was possible for me. Like last year, I ran my first marathon, and a couple of years ago, I thought it was unimaginable. I would never even try that. It wasn't to, as you say, it wasn't to get validation from other people, but to prove to myself that I can do this, and I'm worth it, and I'm enough. And here's my question, because I feel it, that is a great thing to have, because it pushes you to accomplish great things as you have done. But on the flip side, depending how you take it, it could be negative because it could become a torment. How do you balance that?
I think it's always coming down to, why do I want to do this, right? Why is this even important to me in the first place? And a lot of us, it's about that self actualization. And if we look at, there's this great principle from the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. A lot of us start with just the foundation of just the safety over a roof over our head and making sure that we have the meal to eat, and then we go on to the next one and feeling like there's something that we're learning, we're constantly growing, and then finally there's the self-actualization of, you want to be better yourself despite of how others feel. And at the end of the day, it really comes down to, am I living this life for myself, or am I living this life for someone else? And most of the time, we're so busy. Each one of us are so busy. We don't care about what other people is doing. And we're too busy to care for other people. And so if you don't care about yourself, then no one will. And so we end up feeling extremely lonely and segregated. We feel like we don't belong in any part of this. But when in reality, it's the fact that you have forgotten that the only truly important thing about who you are is yourself. Right? If I don't care about myself, no one will. No one care. Like, that's the reality of it. So it comes down to, why do you want to do it? What does that validation mean to you? Right? And to me, it was a validation of, I belong, that I can do things when I want to, if I want to, and if it is important to me, then I can accomplish it. So it was important to me and no one else. I could care less if anybody else know that I hiked Machu Picchu. But I knew that when I set my mind to do something, I did it. I put a check mark, and it makes me proud. It makes me feel good. It makes me feel accomplished. And how other people think, it's irrelevant.
That's absolutely incredible, Michelle. And you mentioned something that, if you flip it, it would give us a lot of mental peace. You said, well, I don't care about other people, but I should care about myself. I'm not looking at what other people are doing. I should look at what I'm doing. Well, if you're like that, that means that most people are like that. So nobody cares what you are doing, which means you need to be free of that fear of judgment. It's like, what, which again, I'm guilty of that as well. I'm very self-aware. It's like, are people looking at me? What if I put this kind of content? What are people gonna think? It's like, everyone is so self-centered, and is so thinking about how other people are viewing them, and that nobody's actually looking at you, which is liberating. It's like, that means that, wait, nobody's judging me. That is absolutely incredible, right? And even when you see, especially that you live in New York and LA, you will see crazy people doing crazy things outside. They don't care. They don't care. So it is actually, when you truly internalize and think, oh, I can do whatever, and I shouldn't be feel ashamed or worry about what people might think about me. And what you also said is true, that if this is valuable to me, then nothing's going to stop me. And that is, I wish more people could feel that way and tap into that power, which I think that's what you do with a lot of your female clients. Those challenges can be extremely intimidating, and leads to inaction. And as you said, there's nothing more uh, debilitating emotionally, psychologically, than wanting to really do something but feeling powerless. You feel hopeless. That, how do you help these people to face those intimidating challenges and overcome that inaction?
Yeah, so I think, through this whole process, when you start looking at yourself, what's really ironic about this whole process of coming back to yourself is that you start to cultivate that sense of humility. Humility is something that you can relate to other, right? It's about connecting with others, and being and more empathetic than looking at yourself and feeling like you are the victim of something that had tragically happened. And so it's really ironic when you start focusing on, all these judgments about you, and you focus on working on yourself, there's that door of opportunity that just opens up, and you actually turn around and you think more about how you can care for others because they are just like you. So you start to cultivate that sense of empathy, and you want to take care of more people because you care about them. It's you care less so that you can care deeply. It's a very funny way of saying it, but you care less about what people see and feel about you, but you care about them more deeply because you no longer care about the judgment that comes behind it. So you are able to go out and you're making creating that ripple effect by caring more people, because these people are just like you. We're all just human, different shape, different body, different sizes, different color, but at the end of the day, we're all just people. Just like you, I have days that really sucked, and there are days where I it's amazing, right? I'm gonna buy myself an ice cream and it's a great day. And at the end of the day, we're all just people, we're just human, and we're just here to experience something together. And that togetherness brings this whole magic around, so that people can become more interconnected. And so when you care less about how you're judging, how you're being judged, or all these things that doesn't really makes you feel good, when you stop caring more about that, you start caring more deeply about the overall collective experience of that, how we come together. So it's very ironic in that. And how I work with my female coaches and clients now is because they also have this mission of they want to make bigger impact. They want to go out and work with other people, other clients, their clients, to help them to create that ripple effect. When the vision that I have is I'm on top of this mountain, right, the Machu-Picchu, and I'm holding on to this one woman who's keeping herself, playing small, being invisible, and holding on to the idea of, I don't know, when I turn on live videos, people's gonna laugh at me, or when I go onto a microphone or go onto a podcast, I don't know what to say. My job is to share that story, to encourage that person to share your story, because your story has superpower in it. You learn a big lesson through the experiences that you have. And the more that you can use that experience to help more people, that person is going to go out to help someone else. And so you create this ripple effect by including the society as a whole, just by helping one person at a time. And that is what I came here to do, helping one person at a time, so that one person can help another person, and we create this massive network of effects, and that's how the collective of society can come together. So don't aim to help everybody, just aim to help one person today, and that person will come back and thank you.
That is amazing. And we tend to we tend to give credit to other people, we never tend to give credit to ourselves. And one of the reasons why I created this podcast, Redefining Wisdom, was like that, because we can learn from anybody. Could be a homeless person or be the most successful person in the world. Everyone has a story. Everyone has their own sets of experiences that shape their life, and you can learn from them. But since we don't recognize that, we feel, I have nothing, as you said, I have nothing to say. What, I mean, who am I to teach X, Y, and Z, or the other person what they should do? Well, your own experience, your own trial and error. You were not, you didn't come out of the womb just like as you are today. You went through a lot of experience, and you tapping into that power is once again incredible. And really, uh, we need more people like that. We need more people to feel good with themselves, and to understand that, hey, you might not have all these titles or degrees or accolades or the money, but you are you, and that makes you unique. So that is absolutely incredible. One thing that I forgot to ask you on the previous thing, when you were in Machu Picchu and let's say you're 70% in, 80% in, you're really struggling, right? It's not a hard, it's not an easy hike. You have your crutches, you have all that. What was going through your mind that helped you keep pushing forward and not say, man, I'm tired. I don't know if I can make it to the top.
Mm. So it kind of go back to the point where I was saying that when help is needed, ask for help. And I think throughout my whole Machu Picchu journey, I didn't just do it by myself. I had asked for help, right? First of all, I hired an extra additional tour guide to walk with me just to make sure that I don't fall and drop off the cliff and die and nobody knows about it, right? So I asked for help in that sense. I had extra person to walk with me just to make sure that I am safe. What I also had was these passenger who kept passing me by and they turn around, give me thumbs up. And those may be a little gesture that you and I probably on a daily basis would just like easily pass by and easily ignore, right? But that meant a whole world to me in that moment when I was about to give up. When my wrists were burning and hurting, that little turn and with the thumbs up gave me the encouragement that I needed to continue on that path. So don't think that on this journey of life or anything, well, on the road, you run marathon, you probably know this. There's like what people passing the water, a cup of water to you, right? That moment is the moment that carries us on to the victory, to the destination. And that moment didn't come from ourselves. It came from somebody else's hand and say, hey, you're doing a great job. Keep going. So that inspiration and motivation is really extremely important. So don't be shy. Next time you see someone running a marathon, when you see Daniel running a marathon, turn around and give him a thumbs up because that would mean a whole world to him and me included on on that Machu Picchu path. So those of you who gave me a thumbs up on that Machu Picchu path, thank you so much. You know, now I get a chance to actually thank you. But that was the reason why it kept me going. Those moments I needed the encouragement. It didn't come from my just myself as much as I like to think so, but it came from someone else's who's on that path. And I remember meeting all these other teammates from all over the world. There's people came from Australia, people came from UK, and we were all on the hike together. And so it was a great opportunity for me to learn that, oh, when we have a destination in mind, we can actually do this together. And togetherness is beautiful.
That's amazing. What do you? Why do you think it's hard for people to ask for help?
It's that fear of judgment that we talked about, right? We don't want to be judged. We don't want to look weak. That's a big thing. We don't want to look weak. We don't want others to think that we're being a burden to them, and that those are the things that I remember I had a lot of time. And I remember walking into a grocery store a lot of time, and things are really high because I'm really short, 4 feet 4 inches tall. So there's a lot of stuff that I couldn't reach under the top shelf, and that's what was going through my mind, that I don't want to be a burden for someone else to ask them to reach up and grab things for me. I don't want to let them judge me and thinking that I'm weak. And so it was much easier to just, you know what? I don't really need it. I will talk myself out of it, right? Instead of just say, hey, can you help me grab that stuff? And interestingly, when you are not asking, what you're also doing is you're stop somebody from serving their purpose. Right? That's a really interesting concept because each one of us came with a purpose, and in that moment when you don't ask, actually creating this wall, and that wall is stopping from someone to serve their purpose.
That last phrase reminded me something that I've been trying to get better at it. When we tend to get awkward when people give us compliments, right? And when we just reject that compliment, it's like, nah, it wasn't a big deal or whatever. You're robbing the other person the joy of making you feel better. It's the same thing asking for help, as you said, because I've been guilty of that a lot. There's been something inside of me. I don't know what's past experiences or traumas where I felt, "Ma- I need to figure it out myself. I don't want to ask for help, and sometimes help is the last resource. Or, as you said, I tell myself a story. I don't need that anymore. And I'm robbing myself from a joy or from achieving a goal, and it's not pride. People think that is pride. Oh, you're too proud to ask for help. No, it's just that fear of judgment, of that story I told myself, that I might not be enough, that nobody wants me, that I'm lame, I'm a loser. These are all stories that were created in our brain, maybe without our consent, based on past experiences. And how do you change that narrative? How do you change that story to a point that the new story you tell yourself actually becomes reality?
I think it comes with practice. So initially, it's going to make you feel very uncomfortable, and this is true with a lot of things that's going to shift our mindset. You have to remember that our mindset usually it's based on the beliefs that we have. But where does the belief come from? A lot of it come from the family tradition or the religions and things that we're familiar with. So the fact that you're feeling a little uncomfortable in changing that shift or creating that mindset, it has to do with the fact that this is an area that you're very uncomfortable with. But just like riding a bicycle, you first time you ride it, it's very awkward. You're probably going to fall, but it takes practice for you to do this again and again. And one of the exercises I used to when I was doing mindset coaching and life coaching is that I would tell my clients to take out a piece of paper and you're going to write down all the things that you've been judging about yourself and also about someone else. So you're going to write one column and you're going to write down all the things that you're judging yourself and others. And what you're going to do is you're going to go back to that sheet. And for that, every single line you're judging, you're going to write two different ways of how you look at it. So if it's stuff on the top that I'm afraid to ask someone to grab it for me, what would be a more supportive way of looking at it? Well, one is, well, that guy is 6 foot tall. That's what it was designed to do, right? Obviously, being a 6 foot tall, there's a reason for it. So if he drops something, you bet that being a 4 feet four, I'm going to be closer to the ground. I'll pick it up for him because that's what I was designed, physically designed to do, right? I'm closer to the ground. I'm gonna pick it up for you. But when you are on the top, I need you to grab that for me because your body are designed that way. So that immediately shifted that feeling of, oh, I don't want to ask that person because that person is going to say no to me, or I'm going to hear like, oh, you're so weak, you can't even reach that on the top. So that immediately shift the perspective. So I really encourage you, listeners, to, if you're feeling a lot of judgment, whether you're being judged or judging someone else, do that exercise, put it on the sheet, and come up with two other way of how you will look at it. It's more neutral, that is more supported, and that feels more positive.
Oh, I love that concept. I love that exercise. I'll start applying to myself. I'll probably have like a long list of 20, 30, 50 items. Like, okay, let me see how I can look at it from a. It's all about reframing. At the end of the day, it's just reframing. And the funniest thing is, at least in my part, I know this logically. I know this rationally. When the anxiety comes into place, it's like, okay, back up. I mean, back off. I cannot do this. But the sad thing, I guess, is just whenever anybody asks me for help, I'm very excited to help. I'm more than willing. It's like I'm a giver. I just want to give to you. I'm a very bad taker, so I guess that's why it's hard for me to ask for help. But if I think that most people would like to help, then maybe that reframe, that way of seeing things might be, hey, I'm glad to ask. I'm glad that I feel worth it, me as a person who's helping you. So if I ask you, Michelle, can you help me to do this? You feel good about yourself because, oh, he's coming to me, and I can provide some sort of value or service to this person. Good,
Yeah.
easy to see rationally, emotionally. That's a different story. uh, that's a different story. So, Michelle, you have coached a lot of people, right? In your experience, what is the main thing that holds them back? What kind of limiting belief do they have, and what advice do you usually give to them?
Oh, that's a big question. But I think at the end of the day, it's really about the fear that we have, this gremlin that I was talking about, right? The gremlin shows up in different shape and size and form, and it always like to creep in to the point where when you're least aware and least protected. And usually it shows up, especially when you're about to do something big and something major that could be impactful. And so I think one of the key thing about this fear is that I always like to imagine myself driving in a car. And now, most of the time, the fear would be just sitting in the passenger side. But when there's I'm coming up to a big crossroad, there may be things that I was not aware of. So out of my blind side, this fear start taking over my driver's seat. But you have to remember where you are, what you drive, and the direction that you're going. You always, always, always have control in that driver's seat. So the way that you want to do it is recognizing the fact that the fear is always going to be there. The fear is always going to be by your side, always going to creep up. But it is up to you to tell yourself that I am in the driver's seat and this is my car. You sit down, let me drive. You can be chatty, and this is probably something that gentlemen can relate to, right? When you're driving in a car, your wife is there chattering, chattering, right? You just learn. What do? You learn to tune your wife out.
and
No,
uh,
those are
and that gets you in trouble. It's like, well, I mean,
right.
yeah.
So use that scenario every time you want to tame that fear. If the fear is not going to go away, your wife is not going to go away, right? But you always have that control of where you drive, how you drive it, and always take that control of the steering wheel, because that is your life, the direction that you're going to go. So I think just that recognition, it alleviate a lot of the stress and the weight on your shoulder every time you're doing things that's courageous and that requires you to be fully present.
So besides tuning out to some extent that voice of fear or that inner dialogue in your brain, what steps can people take that would help them overcome their fears?
Yeah. I don't believe we can overcome fear, but I do believe that we can live with fear and knowing the fear, but we do it anyway. Again, your fear is not going to go away. So the sooner that you recognize this is going to be part of that feeling, that emotion that you're always going to have, the better you're off. So it's almost like having a conversation with your own fear, right? And you're just having a very gentle reminder to this fear who's in front of you and say, you know what? Today is not your day, and today is not that day. And there's exercise that you can do. For example, you can write down a safety net exercise for everything that you are afraid to do. What's the worst that can happen? What's the worst that can happen when someone rejects you and say, you know what? No, I'm not going to do it. Nothing, right? You still live, move on, get through it, not overcome it. So get through, not overcome.
Yeah, I feel that we suffer way more in our minds than in reality. Well, we have all these scenarios of, well, yeah, worst thing can happen that I get rejected or get a no, or maybe I fall, or whatever the case, right? And in some cases, the worst case scenario are legitimately scared. Like in your case, it, the Machu Picchu, I could fall and die. I mean, that's a major uh, worst case scenario, rather than let me ask this person to, I don't know, help for this, or let me try to sell this customer a product. Okay, they can say no. That's the worst case scenario. But yes, I feel that we need to get out of our own heads, which is way easier said than done. Very simple concept, but as you know, it's just hard to overcome. So I like that part of, hey, just take one day at a time, and then you, maybe if you break it down in tiny pieces, and then you just, it's almost like exposure therapy to some extent. So because you have done a lot of things, and I want to pivot for a second and talk about your mental strength, right? I'm obsessed with mental toughness, what how people can build it, how can become better at it. how do you develop that resilience that it seems to come from that mental strength?
I think when it comes down to a lot of, and this is good for to kind of like include everything that we had talked about so far, right? And including how I got into Machu Picchu. It doesn't come overnight. And there's no way that you're going to do this overnight. So all the feeling, the fears and the hesitation, it's all going to be there. So the key thing is about practicing. And so today it may not be familiar with you. It's not going to be like stick, but if you commit to the fact that I'm going to practice this way and this is how I'm going to start thinking moving forward, the more that you do something, it becomes almost like a second nature to you. So there's no doubt it's not going to be easy to overcome or to be able to do what all the things that we have talked about today. But when with practice, you need to make a commitment to practice it every single day. And so it's a fact that allowing yourself to have these moments of high and those moments of low, but not feeling bad about those moments of low, but keep practicing it. And so someone can show you the door through something, but it's up to you to actually wanting to go through it and to keep learning about it and to practice it. So some days it's not going to work, but are you going to allow that someday to define who you are or define your day or define the rest of your life? Probably not, right? If that's what you choose, then guess what? Tomorrow your experience is probably going to be the same. But if you choose it otherwise and you decided to stick to it, to practice all the things that we had talked about so far, then I can guarantee you that you're going to see a different, you're going to experience something that's different that might spark a motivation or that might spark something new in your life that you have never ever recognized and realized that you are capable of doing.
Yeah, I feel that I can agree to that in a sense that it's going to feel weird. It's going to feel uncomfortable at first because you're going to feel awful because you're bad at it and you feel okay, this is not for me. That has happened to me. It has happened to a lot of people when we try something new, especially when it's internal work. As we said, like telling ourselves a new story or overcoming some fears or having a mental strength. We tried a few times and then we suck at it because even though that's a skill, that's a muscle, it has atrophy in it. We never use it. So to use it again is or to start building it's like that person who wants to go to the gym. I can only walk for 10 minutes. It's like, I feel bad, but it is okay to be bad at the beginning. It's totally normal, and we need to recognize that. And Michelle, has been one of the most enjoyable, seriously, conversations I've ever had. I just You're inspiring. But as a closing question, right? If there was one singular idea that has the most profound impact in your life, what would it be?
Choice. I think we're constantly making a choice. And so how you make choice is really by the value, the why that we had talked about so far. And making that choice is going to determine your destination. It's going to build that confidence in doing anything at all. And so to me, having that ability to make a choice is very important. And you want to make sure that when you are making that choice, you're making the best decisions that you have. You know that this decision is something that's supportive, that is aligned with your values, and that once you make that choice, you want to commit to it. Okay. So it's like flipping a coin. In this moment, I can flip a coin and I'm going to get 50-50 chance of doing anything. Right. And so we have no control of which side this coin is going to be, but we have that choice. We have that power of flipping that coin. So it may sounds very scary, but whatever decision that you have to make, flip that coin and let your life lead you to where you need to be, and just be open about it.
I love it. And as you said, everything, I feel that yes, it's true. Everything is a choice. And we're in the driver's seat, as you said. It's like we can control our own destination, our own destiny. We have the power to do what we want to accomplish or to reach our dreams. but we tend to put so much power on the outside when reality is our choice to put the power out there. And seriously, I feel that that is what has helped you to get to where you are, and it's going to help you propel even further uh, higher in your own journey, which is unbelievable. And I feel that is, to me, is just a beautiful answer and a very practical one and simple. So Michelle, I know that because we were talking before we started this interview, and I know that you have you're launching a course. Where can people find you? What is the course about?
Yeah. So help female coaches. I work closely with female coaches to help them to simplify their marketing strategy just by showing up and no complex tactic whatsoever. And I help them to get seen, get heard, and also get paying clients. And where people can find me is through my website at elevatelifecoaching.org. And when they go to the About Me section, they'll be able to scroll down and look for a copy of my book. It is available on Amazon. It's called Perfectly Normal.
Awesome, Michelle. Yeah, I'll add those to the screen and to the YouTube description and all of that. And once again, Michelle, it's been a lovely, lovely time. I feel inspired hearing your story of success, but also knowing the challenges that were there. And as I said before, one of the most enjoyable conversation I've ever had.
Thank you so much.